Good. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'll talk to you about the topic that some of the other speakers have talked about, and I'll do a bit of a deep dive because I think it merits the effort. And I'll talk to you about marketplaces, the frenemies, I call them, of e-commerce. So I'll take a bit of another stance this afternoon. Who am I? Yes, I'm Dennis, I'm Belgian, I live in the Netherlands, and I've been around in e-commerce for the last decade in Northern and Western Europe, in various sectors. I've set up PayPal back in the days in the Benelux. I've worked for eBay Classifieds as commercial director in Denmark and the Netherlands. I've run a hotel booking site, and now I'm involved in media running Netherlands' largest job portals. So I tend to know a bit about e-commerce. When we look at marketplaces, it all starts with a definition, like, what is a marketplace? And that's actually a hard question because they come in various shapes and forms. You could say that a marketplace at highest level is a kind of intermediary site which aggregates supply from different providers and puts them at the disposal of their customers. One usually tends to make a distinction in marketplaces between horizontals and verticals. And verticals also, you see them across various industries. I've brought with me here an overview of marketplaces only in the Netherlands, and you see they appear in all sectors. As said, I have experience myself with the supply-demand side of marketplaces in travel, and and human resources, consumer goods, and fintech. But there's many. And if you look at marketplaces, I think we all know the high-level figures, they have a huge impact on the economy. If you look at the latest figures, about a bit more than half of total e-commerce sales is actually generated through marketplace, and the other half actually through direct retail sales. But that's at a global level. If you zoom in, for example, on the top 20 e-commerce players, you already get a totally different picture. Of the top 20 global e-commerce players, 83% of their sales is generated through marketplaces, and only 17% is generated through direct retail sales. Different picture. And then if you translate that obviously to cross-border commerce, then you come to obviously to the same conclusion that more than 50% of cross-border e-commerce is generated through marketplaces. And if you zoom a bit into Europe, you will come across the usual suspects, Amazon, and the old company eBay. But don't forget AliExpress. If you look, for example, at the Netherlands where I live, AliExpress is actually at the moment the biggest and the fastest growing marketplace. And I think it's fair to say that if you look at those numbers, we've underestimated marketplaces structurally. And they will only become bigger. So I did a bit of, we're here in Athens, so I did a bit of a history study myself into the figures, and I kind of scrolled back to 2015, and in 2015 we all said together that, hey, marketplaces will become big, and they will own 40%, we estimated back in the days, of e-commerce in 2020. Now, we're here today, 2018, and it's actually already more than 50%. And if you look at the current estimates, you were saying, okay, it's now 50%, but in 2022, it will be 66% of global e-commerce. But I think it's fair to say that probably that figure is underestimated. Again, if you looked at the previous slide that I presented, the share of total top 20 e-commerce players. So, guys, watch out. Then the question is also, how do they do it? What can we learn from marketplaces that made them so successful? And then, looking back at my own experience, it's actually quite simple. Independent of the industry and independent of the country, a marketplace usually follows exactly the same playbook for growth. And you see them emerging in fragmented markets to start with, and they usually start at building the supply side first. Then, if you look at how they work, how they make money, they kind of, they start off free usually, and then they make a business model. And in marketplaces, there's 4 distinct business models. The simple one being a kind of a listing fee, whereby you pay a flat fee per post, per listing. And then you have a business model around visibility, whereby you pay for reach. Yeah, that's usually kind of bumping up your posting. And then you have kind of more software as a service model, which is a subscription model. And the more sophisticated ones run on a day rate model, whereby you pay a percentage of the transaction. And they usually relies around 10-15% as a day rate. It can go as low as single digit, but it can also go as low as kind of in the 30s. And by the way, if you're a really successful marketplace and you own the market in a certain sector, in a certain country, you make tons of money. Yeah? If you look at net profit margins of marketplaces and the dominant marketplaces, they're usually around 50-60%. So if any of you is looking for a good business idea, well, there's money in that. And furthermore, if you look at how they grow, and if you look at successful marketplaces are mathematics. It has nothing to do with art, it has nothing to do with chance. It's mathematics. And they nail it before they scale it. So successful marketplaces usually focus at good unit economics, understanding the unit economics, and understanding the cost of acquisition, cost of customer acquisition, and measuring that up to lifetime value. And the cost of customer acquisition is obviously the traffic cost, whether it being organic or paid traffic. And when we talk about paid traffic in marketplaces, people tend to think about, hey, it's organic, and then I'll do some AdWords, or I'll do some whatever affiliate marketing. But they tend to forget this slide. If you look at this slide, and if you look at successfully building traffic in your marketplace, then, unfortunately or fortunately, traditional media are certainly not that. If you look at what really moves the needle at successful marketplaces and gaining scale and traction, it's still television and radio. And with television and radio, you can really move the needle in building up traffic and gaining traction in the first stages of your marketplace. So don't forget that. Let me skip the secret sauce of Amazon, but moving over to some trends. I brought with me 5 trends in marketplaces, and I'll quickly go over it. One is the hyper-localization and hyper-verticalization. What this means is that if you look at what's happening now, is localization, verticalization is ever more increasing, and that has a simple reason, and because the features, functionalities that verticals offer, cannot easily be matched and give you a competitive advantage. The other one, a well-known one, is obviously pure players moving into offline. And you see Amazon moving into offline. In the Netherlands, you have a big e-commerce company, Coolblue. They opened 7 shops as well. They're the dominant e-commerce player there. And those players are combining on and offline models quite successfully, I have to say. The third trend is actually the emergence of peer-to-peer marketplaces disrupting the traditional agency-based marketplace models. If you look, for example, at a company called Kade, which is in parts, obviously, and Direct Home, guess what they're active in? You're right, real estate. There are peer-to-peer marketplaces emerging, and in the wake of peer-to-peer marketplaces emerging, you also see actually quite an interesting trend, and that blockchain starts to play a role there, for the simple reason that it enforces trust. And you have to look at, for example, a peer-to-peer marketplace called Soma. That's actually a goods peer-to-peer marketplace built on blockchain, and Kanya is actually a services peer-to-peer marketplace built on blockchain to enforce the trust factor. The fourth interesting trend is that the incumbent banks or retailers are opening up their own marketplace as a counter move. And I brought with me some figures from McKinsey, which actually show that if you're a traditional incumbent player, it actually pays off in terms of revenue and EBITDA to open up your own marketplace as a counter offensive. And And the last one of the other speakers already referred to it, is the emergence of B2B marketplaces, kind of the holy grail at the moment. And they will dominate. They will dominate because they have some characteristics that make them more resilient. High margins, very high average order value, interesting, high recurrence. And there's some very interesting examples for you to look at the moment, like Flexport. Flexport is a freight forwarding marketplace. Proxy is actually, well, yeah, the name already says it, it's kind of a seafood marketplace. And Riggup is actually a job portal marketplace in the gas and oil industry. Now, to the question, why are marketplaces so interesting, or why they're so attractive? You know, I looked at a number of reasons. I've actually looked at 20 studies, and then I made an executive summary. It's money, and it's sales. I think that is pretty clear why they're so attractive. But you know, there's a however coming up. However, let's call it what it is. Let's call it greed. The greed of marketplaces sometimes blindsides us for the risks. Yeah? And there's 5 risks to be really aware of. One is that the money always compare it to code addiction. Once you, as a retailer, you sell to marketplace, it's really hard to get rid of it. Yeah? Because, oh, that's nice revenue, I'm going to lose that revenue when I don't sell to marketplaces anymore. That's number one. Code, it's really code. The second one is channel conflicts. If you're a retailer and you have direct channels, for example, stores, and you sell online, and you also have a B2B channel, you will definitely, if you don't watch out, run into channel conflicts. So have a very clear product pricing, a category strategy relating to which channels you're going to use, or you're going to run into trouble like I did once upon a time. You're going to lose margin, you're going to lose insights in terms of data analytics, and you're going to lose direct customer contacts. So yes, there's money to be made, but please be aware of the risks. And this is perhaps hopefully a bit thought-provoking, but let me play it with you anyway. If you look at the global level, at what's happening with marketplaces, the marketplaces playbook almost always leads to the same outcome. Always. And that's impoverishment of the e-commerce landscape and merchants losing out. Now let me take you through the stages of marketplaces evolution and how that's going to affect you as a merchant or as a retailer. Normally marketplaces start off kind of, stage number 1. As I said, they build up supply, and they're going to have you, and they're going to say, hey, B2B, you can list for free. At the marketing side, B2B, as I said, they're going to invest into marketing, and then they're going to play bluff poker. And what it means is that for normally 3 to 4 years, they're going to invest heavily into marketing to build up a presence, because they know one thing, in a marketplace, the winner takes it all. Step 1. Step 2. Once they reach that stage, they're going to start monetizing, and they're going to say, hey, now, we started for free, but now please pay for the listing at the B2B side. Step 3 becomes dangerous, because in step 3, what they're going to try to do at the B2C side is they're going to try to keep the traffic, which usually in the first stage is sent to the marketplace or sent to the retailer or has sent to another aggregator. They're going to keep the B2C traffic on their side. And how they're going to do that is they're going to say, hey, instead of pushing traffic to the retailer, they're going to say, please view this product detail page on my side, or please do the order on my side, or do the apply on my side. Once they've done that, they will move on to step 4. And step 4 at the B2B side is they will cut out the middleman, which have made them great in the beginning to start off with, and they're going to start to build direct merchant relationships. It's like I call it kind of a Trojan horse kind of opening up. And then finally in step 5, they're going to in for the kill, and they're going to lock in merchants and producers through vertical chain integration. Take any, and I dare you, take any sector, any country, you will see this play. So, it's not good at. Unfortunately, so if you kind of translate that to where the world is going to, then I'm kind of claiming that we're moving towards towards what we call platform empires, where marketplaces rule and dominate. So the question is, for you as a merchant or as a retailer, oh shit, I'm in trouble. What can I do against that? Then, I brought with me 4 generic strategies that you can follow to counteract. Depending on whether you own inventory, yes or no, or whether you have tailored customer needs or not. You can either become a specialist retailer and build out also a brand if you're a vertically integrated retailer, or you can become a generic retailer, or you're a market maker, which is really where the marketplaces are. So, let me leave you with some final thoughts on that, and let me leave you with 3 pieces of advice. And the 3 pieces of advice relate to the fact that, time and time again, I've seen that retailers overestimate their competence facing global marketplaces. And the 3 pieces of advice are the following. Number 1 is, use marketplaces, but use them wisely. Use them to learn, gain skill, go cross-border. Then quickly, once you've done that, quickly pivot towards more a vertical or a specialist retailer model. And then thirdly, build a brand with heart. Become a love brand, otherwise you're dead in the water. Thank you.